Alrighty, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I just was going to give a quick update here on what I have been doing. The last couple of live streams, I know I haven't been providing much commentary. It depends on if I'm having stuff going on around the house. Usually I'll get a chance to do a little bit and then I'll have to take a break or whatever, do something else. So that's the way it is. That's the way it is. So what have I been up to? So the satellite. I've been focusing on the satellite. So what I did is I painted it, and I put some painted blocks on here which give the alignment. So that way you can get used to how it moves around in space. Alright, so the other thing I did is I had to upgrade the controls. So what it does is the ship will broadcast its angles and its velocity to the satellite. So the satellite will then take that data and it will try and mimic whatever the main shuttle is doing. And my hope is that when we're in space, if I can do that, it'll make it easier to launch. It'll have similar velocities on similar angles, and that way when I launch it, it's not going to have a tendency to want to fly away, right? So remember that gravity in Stormworks is constant, so that means when this ship stops in space or its velocity slows down, I'm going to have a different velocity than the ship, and this is going to have a different weight and a different velocity than the ship as well. Kind of makes sense, I guess. They should all have the same, a similar velocity, because they're all attached together. But anyways, let's not worry about that kind of stuff. So anyways, so yeah. So if I launch this, okay, if I just jettison it into space, it's going to immediately start to fall back towards the Earth. So what I need to do is I need to be able to stabilize it before I jettison it. So that's what I do is I broadcast the altitude and everything from here to the satellite. So when I launch it, it has a similar trajectory and everything as this. Then what we can do is we can manually control direct thrust on Z, Y, and X. And that way we can manually position from there wherever we want the satellite to be. And we can also manually rotate the satellite on X, Y, and Z. And that's all done through switches here. I'm going to try and clean it up if I can and add just some different lights. I'm trying to, but I'm still in the process of gathering data. So when you're gathering data, you need lots of switches and lots of buttons and lots of dials because you need to interpret all that data, right? As you can see, I've been able to shrink a lot of what we had here into screens. Eventually, I'm going to shrink this into a couple of data screens here, and it will be all cleaned up. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you so much for watching. In case you're wondering what I have been doing, a little bit of the Lua and a little bit of these microcontrollers. That's all I've been doing is just connecting functions to radio waves. That's it. So this radio broadcasts to here, this radio broadcasts to here, and then we have our video, which has to broadcast back. So the satellite is getting pretty heavy. I'm hoping we're still going to be able to launch it without having to reconfigure it. But this is the best, not the best way, but this is the second best way to do it. It's condensing it after that, right? So I'll have to condense the data down if this isn't going to work. So I'll just spawn it in and maybe I'll see if I can make it less confusing. Now the XYZ is configured to our orientation in space. It's not configured to our orientation here on the planet. So let's see what's the first thing we want to turn on. Let's see, we can turn on, oh, that's got no, this whole panel doesn't have any electricity. All right. Let's start with that. Yeah, we're really starting to kind of get into this is what I need for electricity. So we'll see if the solar power plan is gonna is gonna work, or I might have to put a generator on the satellite dish. It'll be a diesel satellite powered satellite dish. Oh, that'll be hilarious. That will be hilarious. Right? So if this works, where do we go from here? Well, I want to create the spacesuits that are going to let us walk out into space, right? But so similarly, if I just open a door and I jump out the window while I'm in space, I'm going to start falling towards Earth. So if I have a suit on, it's going to do the same thing, and it's going to start pulling and tugging. Whereas if I'm able to get the velocity data and the angular data from the spaceship, and I'm able to make that, what's the word? I'm not too sure the word I'm trying to say. But if I'm able to get that data and I'm able to put it into a suit, we can do the same thing with this. So then you can be locked into the suit and you can jump out of the spacecraft and you can turn it on, whatever, control hold, and it'll start broadcasting and you won't float away from the ship. You'll have the same velocities as the ship. And then we'll be able to manually traject ourselves around. That's kind of where we're going. It's been taking a while, I know. I'm sorry. I've been trying to provide more commentary, but it's hard for me to think about these things and interpret them at the same time. I have to think about them like, okay, some of this doesn't have power. Analyze it, process it, interpret it, test it, and then say, okay, yeah, sure, that works. Or sometimes it doesn't work. So I think this is all connected now. What didn't have power? Let's try that. Yeah, so the final part that I need to finish programming here is the altitude hold for the satellite. Then once I have all that, right now it only functions in two modes, manual and interpreting data from the spaceship. So I still have to configure it to interpret data for itself. So that way we'll be able to launch it and it'll be able to traject itself in space. Then at that point, what I hope to be able to do is communicate with it through the satellite dish. Hopefully they'll get that fixed. It'll be in one of the next up and coming updates. And then we'll be able to take that data, communicate with it from the planet, and we'll be able to manipulate the satellite from the Earth. I'll be able to sit in the bus, and I'll be able to communicate with the satellite and take pictures of space from the bus. That would be so cool. I'd like to try and do that. So that's what we're trying to do here, right? First, I'm trying to launch it. I've successfully done that twice now. Now what I need to do is see if I can get it to be stable. So can I launch it with a similar orbital velocities and angular velocities as the ship, so it stays close to the ship? Then once it'll do that, then I need to say, okay, if it can, how do we do that? If I can succeed at that, then I need to say, okay, now I want to be able to manipulate it, X, Y, Z. Can I do that as well while it's close to the ship, right? Because it has the position hold and it has the rotation hold. So if they're strong enough, in theory, it should hold it on that trajectory, which is the ship's trajectory, and then I should be able to move it around against that trajectory. And when it stops, it could be further away from the ship, but it'll still carry the ship's trajectory and velocities. That's why it's been hard to explain. Then I want to be able to give it its own trajectory and velocities. I want to be able to read it, interpret it, and say, okay, I'm here, triangulate to my position. That'll be the last part. That's coming up, right? So there's going to be a lot more dials and switches and stuff. Then I'll hopefully be able to draw it onto a screen, and it'll be really cool. I think that'd be super cool. Yeah, that's why space is so complicated. And then we'll take that and we'll put it into, our ship on land and a truck, and we'll do some cool stuff with it. We'll be able to triangulate it. We'll have the whole deal, right? The moon, everything will just come together. So it'll be cool. All right, so that's where I'm at. Yeah, I just wanted to put this up, just a quick update video here. This still doesn't have electricity. Why is that? Oh, but that does. Okay, so let's try one more time to connect this here. Yeah, it's a lot. All right, and that connects to the button, which has electricity. And that connects to the button, which has electricity. All right, maybe that will be that. Right, step number 1, launch the satellite. Can I defeat gravity? Just like we did with the rocket ship. Step number 2, now that I'm able to defeat gravity, how do I maintain my position? Because while defeating gravity, we're going to be moving around. So we need to fight that velocity, that angular velocity. Then once we have successfully fought the angular velocity, then we need to say, okay, can I now change my trajectory and change my velocity while continuing to maintain that initial fighting of gravity and velocity? And then if all those are successful, then we can say, okay, now can I triangulate while also doing all those things, right? It's just this little steps here. Good, okay, it looks like we all have, except for the rotation sync keypad. Okay, but everything else, this doesn't have it. So this button and that, okay. And yes, they give us most of that information. But again, it's raw. Where is this keypad? I'll keep missing here. Dial, rotation sync. Is that the keypad? That is the keypad. Haha. I found you. And then, where is it? Was it dial locks? That's right. Whatever that button does. Probably nothing. Yeah, and then so while you gather all that information, we have to be testing the validity of that information as well. Is this true? Is this not true? You know, how can we interpret it? How do we, all that stuff. So it's just been a lot of transmission rotation is false. Oh my goodness, really? And transmit video is false, and transmit rotation is false. All right, jeepers, this panel, I tell ya. So probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this panel up here. I'm just going to move it up here so that way we don't have to be way down here. But again, I need the room to work with it, and I need an area to test it. That's the whole point here. So I'm going to change this up a little bit so I can crawl into there. Yeah. All right. So what was it? It was this button here. Transmit video. And transmit velocity? No. Transmit rotation. Yeah. There we go. All right. So now the whole panel should have electricity. This was just supposed to be a quick update. Turned into a longer update. But I'm glad I was able to explain, hopefully, what I've been up to and why I haven't really been talking, because I've been trying to think about how to do all that. How to gather the data and how to print it in a way that makes sense, that we can interpret, you know? So it's not just numbers coming in and dials spinning and people are going, what? What's going on? And I'm sitting here with a pad and paper and I'm like, okay, if I'm moving this way, what's my velocity? Okay, so we turn that on. Rotation sync should be 5319. All right. So now it's trying to rotate to the current XYZ of the spaceship, which is different. Like I say, there's a different in space and there's different in on the planet. And you turn that off. So when we launch it, it should already be in proper alignment, and then I can turn that on. And then what I'd like to do is I can say transmit velocity, on 6637. All right, and then that's through the seat WSAD. So now I don't have this connected yet, but I should be able to, get it to move around while it's holding its position. Maybe I'll need to set up some additional thrusters. That's what all needs to be tested. Maybe I need some additional thrusters to give me just that enough force here, on the edge to move this thing around, right? Because when we're in a spaceship, that's what we're going to need to be able to do. Triangulate ourselves, rotate ourselves. How do we do that? So that's pretty much what I've been up to, and then wiring the controls, trying to make it all work. So maybe today or next couple of days, there'll be a video up, a few more live streams of progress to see how this goes, but I'm really excited to launch. I'm really excited to launch this satellite. See if we can do all this. I'm just having so much fun. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.